Hello, Internet. I have a lot of footage and photography to show you from Vietnam. I spent 4 days, including last weekend, in Hanoi. You will notice that most of this footage is very grainy. My apologies for that. I seem to have left my camera for most of the trip on a low-res setting. It's such a shame. I'm going to give you a day-to-day rundown of what we did in Hanoi. Christine and I flew into Hanoi last Friday night. When you fly into Hanoi, you get an immediate sense of what a developing country looks like. The immigration booths where they stamp your passport were very bare bones, and they looked rather worn. Although I will say it was the quickest immigration I've ever been through. Although that probably had something to do with it being midnight. The drive to the hotel primarily consisted of one long road. When we first got on the road, there was a car in front of us that I assumed was being driven by a drunk man because it was in the middle of the lane. But I later realized that's just how you drive in Vietnam. The cars stay in the middle of the road and the motorbikes whiz by. The motorbike is the primary form of transportation in Hanoi. There are more motorbikes in Vietnam than you can possibly imagine. And it's not just used for one person to get around. Motorbikes were very craftfully used to carry things such as market vegetables, trees, livestock, your entire family, or a recent purchase of a flat-screen TV. The bikes also have to honk a lot as they go by, bigger cars honk a lot as they go by. Trucks. Everybody works like you would in a boat. The bigger cars have the right-of-way. It's completely backwards from the way I know how to drive a car. Christine and I stayed in a hotel called the Happy Hanoi Hotel. It was very pleasant, very clean, and only about $50 or 1 million Viet Dong a night. So we slept in Saturday morning, and the first thing we did was to check out the local cuisine. We went to a street stall to have bun cha, which is barbecued pork and beef with noodles, soup, fresh greens, and spring rolls. I was a little wary of the shop when we first went up to it because everybody was sitting very low on little stools close to the ground. The ground was not exactly clean. The people had bowls of food there moving around. I didn't really see where they were cooking things. Here we are in a developing country, and I'm an American, so I'm freaking out a little bit. Christine calmed me down after a minute, and we enjoyed a really good meal. It was fantastic, actually. Definitely recommend trying out the bun cha, and don't be too scared of the food. Although I did find a guide later that said not to eat the greens. Maybe it's more risky, rather, because they might not be washed good. I don't know. I didn't have a problem myself, but hey, that was a recommendation I read somewhere. After the food, we went to a gallery called 54 Traditions, which was dedicated to promoting the art of the minority groups of Vietnam, of which I assume there are 54. It's an awesome gallery with great art, most of it tribal. There was a room of shamans, tools, and artifacts that pretty much blew me away. I bought a stamp. It says, "Shaman places an impression from a stamp of this type directly onto the skin of the chest of the sick person to strengthen his healing efforts." Next time I go to Vietnam, I definitely want to find a way to explore these kinds of cultures more. I'm going to list all the websites for the places we visited, restaurants, hotels, and so on and so forth in the doobly-doo below. We had dinner that night at a restaurant with dog on the menu, and possibly the best tofu I've ever had. They also have a strange Vietnamese liquor you can find at a few places containing such things as fermented lizards. Okay, day 2. Christine and I took a cooking class from Hidden Hanoi. Possibly the highlight of the trip. Christine is a master to find great things to do while traveling. During our class, we prepared the street food that we had on the first day from scratch. The instructor was awesome, a great teacher on all levels. I have made a second video of just this experience you can enjoy by clicking on the spring roll in this picture. We wandered the galleries and shops the rest of the day, and then that night went to the #1 recommended attraction, the Water Puppet Show, where we were amused. The Water Puppet Show started in the rural rice farms as entertainment after harvest, and it enacted the story of a king and some kind of mystical rising dragon, and a lot of things we weren't sure of, dancing fire puppets, candles on their heads, I don't know. And To Christine and I, it was just hilarious. Although we did look around the room to all the other Westerners who were watching, and they looked like they're taking it very seriously. The music about the show was the highlight. The music was fantastic. Don't go for the puppets, go for the music. Day 3, we took a guided tour 2 hours outside of Hanoi to Tam Kok. Here we went down a river on a rowboat. Most of the rowers we saw were women, and a cool thing they would do is to row the boats with their feet, which I've never seen before. But the rower we had was an older guy who at first seemed very pleasant and liked to talk about how beautiful things were, and then he tried to sell us stuff later, like embroidered curtains and crap. We also visited 3 temples, 3 different temples, 2 Buddhist, and one that had been rebuilt that was part of a kingdom from 1,000 years ago. It also contained the temple of the king who the puppet show had been about. We learned all about him from our guide who had studied history to some extent. That night we were very tired. We had a nice dinner. Yeah, visiting Vietnam is pretty much all about eating. The last day we visited the Fine Art Museum, and I'm so glad we did, because I have never seen the kind of painting they had. It is a completely original style of lacquer painting, and it pretty much blew my mind. Most of the themes were war-related, and most of the scenes were breathtaking. Everything kind of glowed. There was gold and silver in a lot of the paintings. We also visited the flower market as the whole city prepared for Tet, which is the Vietnamese version of Chinese New Year. Good ice cream. We went to a swanky hotel and had drinks, and just generally enjoyed Hanoi and each other. I recommend visiting Hanoi to any traveler. The Vietnamese are a happy, forgiving, and wonderful people. Thanks for watching. I'm Stuart Palm.
Seafood. Vietnam, seafood.
Yeah, it's very